Hello, I'm Adrienne Molenkamp of the League of Women Voters of Athens County. Welcome to this candidate forum for the Alexander School Board race. We hope that this will provide you with information for the upcoming election. There are 4 candidates running for 3 seats on the Alexander School Board. Voters may vote for up to 3 candidates in this race. All 4 candidates are participating tonight. They are Jay Barnes, Josh Collins, Fred Davis, and Aaron Ramsey. We appreciate these candidates for making the time to participate. Please make sure that you have a voting plan for this fall's election. The last day to register to vote or update your address is coming up this Tuesday, October 4th. Early voting starts October 5th at the Board of Elections office on Court Street in Athens. If you want to vote by mail, you must submit a written absentee ballot request form. The absentee ballots will begin to be mailed to voters on October 5th. Election day is Tuesday, November 2nd. You can verify your polling place by contacting the County Board of Elections. In addition to candidate events, our league produces a voter guide in which candidates provide written answers to questions. You can find this guide now online at vote411.org. It was published yesterday in the Athens News, and it will be published in this Saturday's Athens Messenger, October 2nd. If you go online, you can see all of the races and the issues that will appear on the ballot this fall. The League of Women Voters is dedicating to expanding public awareness about government and encouraging active participation in government. The League does not support or oppose political parties or candidates. Despite our name, the League is not for women only, and we welcome participation and support from all people. Please visit us on the website at athensleagueofwomenvoters.org to find out more about our league or to become a member. If you appreciate these candidate events and our voter guides, please consider making a donation to support all our local work on our website. Thank you, and now I'll turn this event over to tonight's moderator, Beth Clodfelter.
Welcome to this evening's candidate forum. I will begin by explaining the forum procedures, which each candidate here has agreed to in advance. Tonight's forum will include an opening statement by each candidate, questions submitted by the public in advance, and a closing statement from each candidate. Candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 2 minutes for their closing statement, and 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds to answer each question. There will be no rebuttals or responses to the answers of other candidates. The order for speaking will rotate, and I will indicate who speaks first each time. You won't have to keep track of it. The candidates can see our timekeeper, who will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining, 10 seconds remaining, and when the time has expired. If a candidate continues speaking past the end of the time, I will say thank you and move on to the next speaker. But I really hope no one makes me have to do that. Candidates are invited to share their qualifications and experience and to talk about their plans and proposals. Candidates were asked to focus on topics relevant to the stated question and to avoid personal attacks and raising issues that are unrelated to the office being sought. If anyone goes outside these guidelines, I may have to stop the person and remind them of the guidelines. All questions from the public were received ahead of time through the email address included in our advertising and were then reviewed by a league panel. The panel removed any questions that, 1, could not be answered by all of the candidates, 2, were statements rather than questions, or 3, were duplicates of other questions. I will ask as many questions as time allows, striving to cover a variety of topics before the forum ends at 8:30. So we will now begin our opening statements. You learned the order before, so if everybody's ready, Jay Barnes, you will speak first, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, and good evening, everyone. At first, I would like to take just a moment to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. It is a very good way of getting information out to the public, especially in light of not being able to hold these live in person anymore. So thank you quickly. And I'd like to just state that as many of you know, I ran for election last go around 4 years ago. It was my first time in this endeavor. I came into this pretty naive. I was not aware, and not that anybody would, I really didn't have any idea what a board member role was. But after 4 years of on-the-job training, I've gotten better. I came in, I felt at the time, the reason I ran, the district was in quite a lot of turmoil. We had a lot of outstanding issues that were unresolved. And I felt that given my business background and my small business and having approximately 7 employees, that I could lend some of my financial and business skills to the district as an advisor in an advisor role to help move the district forward. And I think that I have done that in the last 4 years. Feel like I've become a resource to the administration, and with your vote, I hope I can continue that. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. And now Josh Collins, please give your opening statement.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I'll echo Jay's statements. It's nice to have the opportunity to give this access to everybody. And I'd also like to say thanks to Jay and to Aaron and to Fred for being here this evening as well and for participating. It's nice that all of us are willing to be out there and in front of everybody. I am Josh Collins, for those that don't know me. I'm a product of Alexander Schools. I graduated in '94. And the main reason that I maintain my involvement here and I want to continue on being a board member is I want to be able to preserve that sense of community in that environment that I grew up in. And I want to be able to preserve that for my kids. We have 3 in the district. For those of you watching, for your kids, and for those that have come before and will come in the future as well. That sense of community and that environment is what led my wife and I to keep our roots here. Growing up here, my wife did not grow up here, but I did. And we chose, because of the environment that I had growing up and because of this community, we chose to drop our roots here and to grow and to raise our family. We're involved at all times. We're involved at all levels of the district, whether it's in our kids' classes, whether it's parking cars at the Paw Paw Festival, working the fair gate, or in my case, coaching for 20 years in soccer as well. We stay engaged in our kids' lives and our friends' kids' lives as well. We've been involved in writing grants for the school and trying to raise money there, a number of activities like that. In my job as an engineering manager at SunPower, I have multi-million-dollar contracts that I manage, and I manage over 20 people. So I have a frame of reference for what it is to operate the school and the size of the budgets that we're dealing with. So I think that those skills that I have lend itself to be an advisor to help the administration in planning for the future and avoiding any road bumps or speed bumps that come ahead. And I'll go ahead and yield my last few seconds back, Beth.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Aaron Ramsey.
Well, again, thanks for having this forum together and everybody showing up and being willing to talk. And we need more of that, I think. So anyway, my name is Aaron Ramsey. I'm a chiropractor at Holzer Health Systems. I've lived in the Albany area, now Alexander School District, since right around 2005. My wife and I, we live here in Alexander School District, and we have 2 kids, twins, that are in 2nd grade at Alexander Elementary School. I grew up southeastern Ohio. I grew up in Oak Hill. My dad was a school teacher. My dad was a transportation supervisor, assistant principal, and retired as a superintendent there. My mom also worked in the school system as a cafeteria worker. My aunts and uncles are all school teachers, so I come from a long line of educators. the main reason I decided to get involved is after watching some of the board meetings, I had concerns that there were some pretty major divisions on the school board. And I felt that there was some dysfunction there. And talking to my wife about it, I felt a need to be willing to serve in a way that hopefully can be a voice of reason, can hopefully work with the administration, work with the other board members to keep the focus on the kids, keep the main thing, the main kid thing. And that's whatever is best for the kids. So I don't have a whole lot more in this opening statement, but thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and speak. And I just appreciate the chance to serve, if so. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last person to give the opening statement will be Fred Davis.
Well, thank you again for everyone for tuning in. Thank you for the rest of the board members for showing up, and Aaron, I appreciate that. My name's Fred Davis. I grew up in this district. I've lived in this district basically all my life. I was a graduate of Waterloo High School, which probably gives a little indication of how long I've been here. For some, it's plenty. For some, it's not long enough. So that's made in my family. But I worked for GT&E for 31 years as a central office equipment installer that goes clear back from the old electrical mechanical age to the new digital age. And we installed offices all over Southern Ohio and even up in Northern Ohio. After I left GT&E after 31 years, I became Emergency Management Agency Director for Athens County. We call it EMA. It's the local level of FEMA. I was there in charge when we had the derecho a few years back and the tornado in the Plains area. The one thing you have to realize in emergency management, it's called planning, preparing, and recovery. And when I dealt with federal grants at all levels. I dealt with every fire department in the county, every emergency agency, whether it's EMS, right down the line. So I've dealt with grants. I've managed people in telephone construction. So I think those are basic elements that's helped me along the way.
All right. Thanks to all the candidates for those good opening statements. We're now going to move to the question and answer portion of tonight's candidate forum. Again, these questions were submitted by the public in advance, and each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. Candidates, excuse me, if you need a question repeated, please ask and I'll be happy to read it again. Okay. So for this first question, Josh Collins will be the first person answering. It'll be Josh Collins and then Aaron Ramsey, then Fred Davis, and lastly, Jay Barnes. And then we'll just keep the order the same, but a different person will start each time. Okay. So your question, Josh Collins, and it will be the same question for each of you to answer. Number one, why do you think you would make a good Alexander School Board member?
Well, I guess to begin with, I would start off with what I've been able to lend in the last 4 years. So first of all, I'm invested in what I do. I don't show up at each meeting and a few hours before make a quick cram session and try to learn what the material is. I'm engaged all the way through the month, looking for the information that we need, being up on current events and looking for what new policy, for example, is upcoming. I make sure that I'm available. If you look on the website, I have both an email and a phone number listed, so I can be reached. Up until recently, I was the only one that could say that. Those emails, those phone calls that come in, they don't go unresponded. You get a response from me. It may take a few days sometimes, but you'll get a response from me, and it's not going to be a form letter. I believe in transparency, and I think that what I've done shows that. As I vote in board meetings, I always preface it with some level of explanation, so you know where my head's at. You know that I'm making an informed decision, not just the easy decision. I'm engaged overall, and I take the responsibilities seriously. So Jay and I recently went through a full rewrite of the policy manual. That was not an easy task and not a short-lived task, but that was something that was long overdue and needed to be taken care of. I've been on the contract negotiation team with this for the staff contracts. And I've been in OSBA board member trainings, whether it be for contract negotiation or basic 101 or the state conference. I'm engaged. That's what makes me a good board member.
Thank you very much. The same question to you, Mr. Ramsey. Why do you think that you would make a good Alexander School Board member?
I think the first thing is that I'm obviously concerned about the challenges that my children are going to face and the other children in the community. There's a lot coming at them right now. And I'm interested in hearing what people have to say. I'm interested in hearing about the concerns that they have. And I do believe that with some of the resources I have at my hand, having an opportunity to work for a system like Holzer, that there may be some advantages as far as having access to pediatricians and specialists of that nature to help inform me and to help make good decisions and get good solid information. One of the things that's hard right now, it seems like, where do we get good information from? And having that access can really be helpful, I think. Also, having parents that have been at almost every level and aunts and uncles have been at every level of education, I understand their struggles. I know that those people that get into this profession of teaching and educating our kids, they care and they want to see the best for those kids. And I think I understand a lot of those challenges that they face as well. And I want to support them so that they can continue to educate our kids and continue to help them have the opportunity to succeed.
Thank you. Fred Davis, why do you think you would make a good Alexander School Board member?
Well, hopefully from now, by this time, it's been 40 years, so I should start to sink in and have a feel for what a good school board member is. I would go back to the history of over 40 years. We built the first Little League field up behind the old Albany High School and followed that up by the Little League fields and the soccer field over at on the complex here. And so my history's always been with kids and about kids. I coached Little League for 27 years. I coached Biddy League for 20 years. So I've got kids that played for me and grandkids that played for me. I have a huge extended family. And my whole life has been devoted to Alexander. And I would say my primary goal as a board member, my decisions are based on what's best for kids. They're based on what's best for all kids, because many kids don't have that person out there speaking for them. And I try to be that voice for those that are unheard. I've spent over half my life here. I love the district. I love the people I serve. And that's basically my goal every day, is to make education successful for every child here.
All right, thank you. For question two, or question three, question two, excuse me. Aaron Ramsey, you will go first. And your question is, what is an area that is a challenge for the Alexander community and school? And what skills would you bring to the board that would help address this challenge?
Beth, Jay didn't get a chance to answer the first question.
Oh, excuse me, Jay, I really did not mean to exclude you. Please go ahead and answer. So your question again is, why do you think that you would make a good Alexander School Board member?
Well, first, I hope that the district feels that I have been a good board member for the last 4 years. But the other thing is I am a product of public education. While I am from this area, many of you know, I grew up, my stepdad was in the Navy, and I grew up away from here. So I attended public schools in Maryland. I actually attended, I didn't know it at the time, but my 7th grade year, you could actually say I was an inner city elementary 7th grade student in South Philly. The Navy base that we were stationed at, we didn't have a school on the base, so we bused to South Philly. And again, at 7 years old, I had no idea that I was attending really an inner city school district. And then we got transferred to Florida, and I finished out my high school there and went to college and chose to move back to this area. And God bless her, my wife, who is from Florida, she decided to move back to Ohio with me, and we chose Alexander. And for 27 years, as of last year, I have our second child has graduated from the district, and they have been proud Alexander graduates. So I think that well-rounded nature would make me a good board candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Aaron Ramsey, it is time for the second question. Again, what is an area that is a challenge for the Alexander community and school? And what skills would you bring to the board that would help address that challenge?
Well, I think the biggest challenge right now that it's on everybody's mind is COVID, and making sure that the kids have the opportunity to be in school to continue their education. And I think that it's so important. We've seen that this year, and talking to different specialists, how important it is for these kids to be in school so that they can learn and move forward and have the opportunity as they get older to be successful in life. And I think that's the biggest thing. And the skills I have is basically, I want to do everything I can to keep those kids in school, to give them the opportunity to learn. I have access to specialists that can help, guide or give input on this, that will make sure that we can make decisions that will keep our kids safe and give them the best opportunity to be in school and continue to learn.
Thank you. Fred Davis, same question to you.
Would you repeat it again, please?
Certainly, absolutely. What is an area that is a challenge for the Alexander community and school? And what skills would you bring to the board that would help address that challenge?
Well, I would add upon what Aaron has said. The last year or so, it's definitely been COVID. The thing I have concerns about not only is COVID, but number one, I voted last year and I continue to vote that this school will stay open. I think it's just not COVID. You're talking about isolation for many kids, especially with working parents. We provide nutrition for many kids that they don't get at home. It's basically the safest environment they spend daily. And it's the mentoring they get and the positive people that are around. So the challenge is to keep COVID under control, but keep the schools open. And we strive to do that every day. I can't say enough good things about our staff and our administrators, the challenges they've made and to continue to work and the dedication they have to our children. So it's at any certain day, we meet special needs, and we offer services from anywhere from mental health services to nutrition to medical service with the clinic on site. So every day it goes back to what is best for kids and how we can best serve them on a daily basis.
Thank you. Now, Jay Barnes, please. Same question to you, which I can repeat if you'd like.
Repeat it, please. Yes.
Certainly. What is an area that is a challenge for the Alexander community and school? And what skills would you bring to the board that would help address this challenge?
Well, I mean, obviously, what Aaron and Fred mentioned regarding COVID is probably a paramount concern. However, my background is financial, being a certified public accountant. That's what I bring to the table, as well as leadership and management skills. I feel that I have done a very good job of being a resource to the administration, to the treasurer, superintendent, just to help guide them through the pitfalls that they face on a daily basis. And that's where I feel my strength is at. one thing that I have learned over the 4 years is there is so many different curveballs being thrown to the teachers, to the administrators, to try to perform at a high level. And there's no way that I can do it any justice. So the only thing that I can really do is help the district as best I can on the financial side, which in my opinion, we are more financially sound. It's a fleeting assumption here because as everyone knows, we are in a levy situation. So as long as we have the levy, finances are easy. But we didn't have that 4 years ago. So that's what I'll bring to the table the next 4 years if I'm lucky. Thank you.
Thank you. And Josh Collins, the same question to you. I'll repeat it. What is an area that is a challenge for the Alexander community and school? And what skills would you bring to the board that would help address this challenge?
So kind of along the lines of what it is that I do in my day job, there's never just a challenge, right? And everybody knows there's never just a challenge. I always try to look at it in the terms of what's near term and what's longer term that we have to deal with. And in the near term, I think the biggest challenge that we have is communication. We need to be able to reach every corner of the district if at all possible. And this area is an underserved area. So we have a difficult time making that connection to everybody. We're constantly having to deal with, can anyone even get internet? Can anyone keep the phones up and running? Do you have cell service? We know areas it's just not possible. So it's difficult to get that communication out to folks, and we need to have that real-time communication to folks because policy can change in an instant, safety measures can change in an instant. The services that are even available to us can change in an instant, and we need to be able to do better at reaching them. For example, we just changed as a district to the Remind app to get information out to everybody. That rollout has gone poorly. We need to learn from that and do better to get the communication to folks. Long term, there's no question in my mind. I'll echo what Jay said. The long-term challenge for us is preparing for a levy. It's a foregone conclusion. We're going to have to deal with it in the near future. And we need to start preparing now. We need to look forward now. At 3 years from now, our decisions, our actions are going to influence what happens there. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the third question. And this time, Fred Davis, you will be the first to answer. The question is, if you are elected, you will be on the board during the renewal of our levy. Given that significant concerns about the levy have surfaced, do you support renewal of the levy? That's question one. If so, what is your plan to increase the likelihood of the levy renewal? That's question three. If not, why not?
Well, number one, I definitely support the levy. I mean, it'll be impossible to operate at the level we're currently operating without a levy renewal. I think if you look back at some of the things that we've done on a regular basis is we try to watch our finances on a monthly basis. We've dealt more into the grant money. We've used wellness funds, which doesn't come out of the general fund. We've gotten COVID monies under the ESSERS program. And so we try to maximize those things, not only to help us through the COVID, but to be able to survive after these funds are dried up. People want more and more services, and I understand that. Because in this day and age with drug and alcohol abuse and everything else going on, there are more and more needs. We're taking on more social services needs. But on the other hand, every one of those programs costs money. So it's not only the board, it's what the general public demands and wants and what they're willing to pay for. If they're not willing to pay for it, then the natural thing is we'll have to cut back some of those services, but I will definitely support the levy.
Thank you. Jay Barnes, the question now goes to you. Given that significant concerns about the school levy have surfaced, do you support renewal of the levy? If so, what is your plan to increase the likelihood that it will get renewed? If not, why not?
But there's no choice. I have to support the levy. The levy is needed. A lot of people that know me know, and I even mentioned this, I think, in the first board meeting or even the debate, that I had my reservations. I absolutely initially was not for the levy. However, once I got involved with the school, got on the board, talked with our treasurer, learned how the school finances are, became better educated on how the state funding for school systems is. It was a quick study. Alexander does not really have a choice to continue to educate at the level we are educating without a renewal. If we don't have that renewal, services are going to be cut. Unfortunately, class sizes are going to have to increase. So bar none, I fully support a renewal for a levy. And the only way that I can, in my mind, help get that passed is if people have questions, give them forthright, honest answers on where the district stands, how money has spent, at least over the 4 years that I've been on the board. Just deal with honest answers.
Thank you. Now, Josh Collins, the question goes to you. Again, given that significant concerns about the school levy have surfaced, do you support renewal of the levy? If so, what is your plan to increase the likelihood of a levy renewal? If not, why not?
So I'll agree with what's been said thus far. There is no choice. The levy is a foregone conclusion. It's going to be necessary. The choice is, how much are you going to support it? How much bought in are you going to be, and how much are you going to do to help out? And I think one of the first things that we can do is learn from, for example, the levy committee. They sent us a report after the last levy, and they put out very clear indications of what it was that was needed from the community that we needed to do to make sure we ensured the likelihood of passage. The first one was communication, honest, forthright, transparent communication. Get the word out, get it out early and often, and continue to get it out. So that way everybody has at least an opportunity, if not multiple chances, to learn about it. They also brought up trust in the board and the administration. It was a big issue that people had to overcome to vote for the last levy, and it'll be there again, I'm certain. We need to be transparent again. We need to make sure that we're open and honest about how things are being affected and how we're looking at the levy. The levy itself is going to be important. We have to right size. We can't just pick a number out of thin air and be greedy. We have to pick a number within the confines that we have in a best method possible so that it has a good chance of passing. And what would I do? Simply, I would be involved, just like I was last time with the levy committee. I'd be an advisor. I'd be at every meeting, have every opportunity to get on the radio whenever there were 4 times. I think Jay was on there twice. We have to be out in the open. We have to be open with people, and we have to be engaging.
Thank you. And Aaron Ramsey, now that question comes to you. So again, given that significant concerns about the school levy have surfaced, do you support renewal of the levy? If so, what is your plan to increase the likelihood that it will be renewed? If not, why not?
Yeah, I'm for the levy. I think what everyone said, I mean, from what I've learned from talking to the superintendent and just learning about this myself, it seems that if the levy doesn't pass, it's going to cause real problems. And again, our focus is educating the kids to a high standard, and the test scores I've seen looks like the district does that. But if we start taking resources away from our teachers and our administration, it's going to be difficult to continue to educate the kids to those high standards. I think one of the biggest things I can do, and I've kind of touched on this before, when people watch the board meetings on YouTube, there seems to be a substantial divide or division along the board. You know, you watch the board and you may see somebody snap at somebody for simply asking a question. And when I, as somebody who lives in the district, watches that, it's hard to get on board with what the board wants to do. So I want to be part of this board to try to help bring it together. And I think just doing that would help the levy. And then again, like everybody said, I mean, being out, talking to people, helping them understand why it's so important, so vital. I think most people in this area want to see kids succeed. And I think once they understand the financial situation, I think they'll be more apt to support it.
Thank you. For the next question, Jay Barnes will get the question first. That is, as a board member, how would you handle making decisions on divisive issues?
All right, repeat that again.
As a board member, if you can imagine being a board member in this instance, how would you go about making decisions on issues that are divisive, that not everybody agrees on? What would your process be for making your decision?
Well, that's actually, I'm going to say, a fairly easy question, only because with COVID, everything's divisive. My role last year as board president, of course, when you're the board president, you seem to catch all the communication, positive and negative. And I learned very quickly that you are not going to please everyone. And I'm a person who I feel like I'm very independent. I know I can make some of my friends mad with decisions that I've made and turn right around the next meeting and they're singing my praises. So on those divisive issues, I have to go with what's in my gut of what I think is best, but also knowing my district, knowing a lot of the people in the district, having friendships and talking with a lot of people on a day-to-day basis that are in the district, taking what that majority sentiment is and helping formulate my opinion is the approach that I would take on those issues.
Josh Collins, same question. As a board member, how would you handle making decisions on divisive issues?
So the first thing that I would do is, first of all, understand the problem. What is it that we're trying to decide, and what are the requirements that we need to meet? Beyond that, you need to be willing to listen to folks, not just those who are loud, not just those who speak like you or think like you. You have to listen to all facets, and you have to weigh all facets. And you have to be willing to accept that you may not be right. Once you've kind of figured out what the problem is and you've understood what the community is saying about it, you need to look at what plans are actually in place, what are the gaps that you need to cover in order to get from where you are to meeting the requirements that you need to hit. And then you need to start evaluating, are you actually there? Can you make a decision? Are you informed enough to make a decision? And is the group ready to go forward with it? And then the final answer is you simply make a decision, not based on your personal beliefs, not based on who was the loudest. You base your decision on how many people can I make sure benefit here. The largest number possible need to be benefiting from your decision. And when that decision is ultimately made, whether you like it or not, it is incumbent upon you to support that decision. And it's also incumbent on you to constantly reevaluate and say, why? Are we there? Are we achieving our goals? Do we need to course correct? And be willing to come back to the decision that was made and adjust it if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Ramsey, your turn. As a board member, how would you handle making decisions on divisive issues?
I think it's like anything else. You just have to remember why you're there and keep your focus. It's easy to get caught up in things, but you always have to step back and think, why am I here? What's my purpose? What's my goal? And of course, the goal is, at the end of the day, we have to make sure we're making the best decision for the kid and for the students. And you collect data, you look at the information, you give the parents the opportunity to speak. The board meetings are so important, an opportunity for people to come and share their opinions. It's important to be out in the public. I think it's good. My wife and I have been going to some football games, just trying to meet people and talk to people more and hear what they have to say. And once you do that and have opportunity to hear the community out, you have a chance to review the information. You just have to remember, I'm here to do the best thing for the kids. And if you can, at the end of the day, go home and thinking I made the best decision possible for the kids, then I think you've done the best you can do.
Thank you. Fred Davis, same question. As a board member, how would you handle making decisions on divisive issues?
Well, I often feel here especially in the COVID era in the last couple of years, everything's been a divisive issue in one way or another. Number one, the primary role of a board member is to be a good listener. And basically you listen to both sides of an argument and you have to come up with a decision. And referring back to Josh, if it's the wrong decision, then we go back and correct it. But I really truly believe each of us has that internal clock and we're here for a purpose. And the only reason we're here is to give kids an education and a better opportunity in life. So every decision is based on what's best for kids, whether we can do it within our financial budget, and how that decision, every decision you make one way or another, there's an action and there becomes a reaction. And so for every decision you make, you got to understand, does it help or hurt the majority, and make that decision. And going back to Aaron Davis Green, an old board member, when I first come on, told me, said, Fred, you make the best decision with the information you have at the time. And the only person you answer to is the person you see in the mirror every day. He said, just do the best you can.
Thank you. The next question will go first to Josh Collins. Josh, one of the major functions of a school board member is the evaluation and employment of the superintendent. If elected, what are the criteria you would use to evaluate the superintendent?
Well, first and foremost, I guess I would rely on the job description, and you look at what are the major tenets in the job description. I would expect a superintendent, and I've done this evaluation multiple times already, would expect a superintendent to be able to perform strategic planning, to be able to look 2, 5, 10 years out and be planning not just for an area of the school, but for the district, the entire community. What are the needs? What do we need to get to? What are our gaps to get there? Communication is key. We must have somebody that can communicate well and communicate clearly. We need to be able to, as a board member, or as a board overall, we need to be able to trust that the superintendent's going to provide us with full information, accurate information, truthful information. We need to expect that the superintendent can manage the funding that he or she has, and can is wise about the decisions that are made with what money is available. We need to make sure that the superintendent is going to observe and evenly apply policy that has been set and execute the policy as has been set. There's not a lot of gray area when it comes to policy, and it needs to be administered in a fair and even and uniform way. And I know the background of this question, and I'll simply go ahead and say it. I don't believe that the superintendent needs renewal this year. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. The question now goes to Aaron Ramsey. Again, if elected, what are the criteria you would use to evaluate the superintendent?
First and foremost in my mind is performance, and that information is pretty easy to see. I mean, we can get reports of how our students are doing and how are they being prepared. From what I can tell, it looks like Alexander, and obviously a lot of this credit's due to the teachers. Alexander's done a very good job, from what I can tell, looking at the reports from the test scores. Definitely, I think that the superintendent also needs to be somebody who is fiscally responsible, and looks for opportunities to stretch every dollar. Because as a taxpayer, we're trusting the school board and the superintendent with this investment, and that investment, we want to see the results of our kids being prepared for the future. And to me, the number one thing is to make sure that we see kids graduating. We see kids that are struggling getting the help and the resources to make it through and become productive, and to give kids the opportunity to gain that education so that the sky's the limit for them, and they can do great things, and they can come back and contribute further to this community. And so from what I can tell and the scores I've seen, I think our teachers and our administration's doing a good job.
Thank you. Same question to you, Fred Davis. If elected, what are the criteria you would use to evaluate the superintendent?
Number one, the superintendent has to have the basic credentials, and our superintendent does. The other side of the coin is, who does the superintendent pick for her administrative team? Because every decision made through the administration is run by the administrative team. And I think that's very important too. I take the opposite view of Josh. I think we have an excellent administrative team. I think we have an excellent staff. And I follow that up by, since this superintendent's been here, we've developed the whole child. And the whole child means anything from nutrition to physical, mental health, and encouraging kids to reach their potential. So if you look at the data and the metrics of Alexander schools the last 5 or 6 years, you can see we consistently rate high within the county, and not just the county, but all of southeastern Ohio. And we've been a model for our No Child Left Behind and our Whole Child, where we've had the state superintendent of schools come down, and they have actually adopted wellness funding and stuff based on what was started at Alexander. So I'm very proud of that.
Thank you. The next question will be, we'll go first to Aaron Ramsey.
Beth, Jay needs to answer that question.
Oh, I did that to you again, Jay. I'm very sorry. It's not intentional. Jay, please answer the question about the criteria you would use to evaluate the superintendent.
I tend to look at more of a high level view. I mean, some people will say you can't see the forest for the trees. As a pilot, I like to say I take the 35,000 foot level view. I try not to get down into the weeds and try to nitpick everything. So what I look for is a higher level metrics, to steal Fred's term. So what I'm looking for is the interaction with the staff, interaction with the administrative team. Yes, while the superintendent is like a CEO of a company, they take the good with the bad. There's a lot of people on that administrative team that goes into making that decision that makes the superintendent look good or bad. Biggest thing that I think we have going for us is where we stand in the community of Athens County and Southeast Ohio. Our test scores are some of the best in the area, and they've improved over the last decade. So I always take a higher level view and try to do and find out what's the best for the district and the superintendent, and going from there.
Thank you. And now we will move to Aaron Ramsey for the next question. Is it ever appropriate to go against the majority of parents' wishes when making a decision on the school board? If so, what is an example where this would be appropriate?
Is it ever appropriate to go against the majority of the parents? I think parents need to be heard. I think we need to take seriously their concerns. Is it possible? Sure. I mean, that's a tough question to say, is there ever? I mean, is anything possible? And an example of that may be a time where parents may not have all the information. I mean, it's a lot of the issues that that we look at or think about every day. And I'm not talking as a board member, I've not been a board member, but just in general, there's generally a lot more to things than what a lot of people know about. I mean, in the world of cell phones and YouTube and those things, we're so used to seeing headlines, and we're so busy a lot of times we don't have the time or the opportunity to dig deeper and get all the information. So I think it's possible that there could be a situation that arises where you may have to disagree with the majority of the parents. But again, I think they should be listened to, and I think you should give them an opportunity to speak, and I think you should take seriously their concerns. And if there is a situation where the parents are wanting something that's contrary to what's best for the students, then I can see that possibly being an issue.
Thank you. Fred Davis, same question. Is it ever appropriate to go against the majority of parents' wishes when making a decision on the school board? And if so, what is an example of when that would be appropriate?
Well, it's hard to come up with the majority of the parents at any one time. Are you basing it on a survey, or are you based it on who came to a meeting or who called you? I look more for a general consensus than anything else, but in the position of the board, you have to understand decisions are made a lot of times for the Ohio Department of Education, something that's basically out of our control, even though people are upset about it. In the era of COVID, it bounces from the CDC to the Ohio Department of Health to the local Department of Health. And then we have parents feeling the direct opposite. I think that message nationwide has been terrible. But I go back to the one reason I've stayed on the board for years and stuff is what's best for kids. And when those decisions come down, I invariably have to decide what I feel's best for students and their future. And a perfect example of that is several years ago when we started to offer free breakfast. And we're a very conservative district back then, and people were up in the arms that you were going to provide a free breakfast. Well, the bottom line was, for students, a hungry child is a hard child to educate. There's necessities there, and those necessities come above everything else. Sorry.
Thank you. Jay Barnes, same question. Is it ever appropriate to go against the majority of parents' wishes when making a decision on the school board? And if so, could you give an example of when that might be appropriate?
Well, Aaron kind of stealed my thunder there a little bit, because I would say my answer is very similar to his. Generally, I'm going to say the answer is no. I mean, as a board member, we are the ambassadors for the school, and we represent the community. So we should be listening to the majority of the school and the parents. However, yes, there's always going to be a time where the majority might not have all of the information that we as board members have. Now, our responsibility would be to educate the community, but we probably would have an unpopular vote go against the majority at the time. But then, give me a month, give me time to talk to people, and I can explain. And I've had that happen. I think in the last 4 years, I've made an unpopular vote at the time, and it probably wasn't the majority. But after talking with people and explaining what I knew, and a lot of people we just don't have all the information, and that's just one of the issues that we have as community members. If you're not attending board meetings, if you're not bending the ear of your local board member, it's hard to have all of that information that we do. And even as board members, we don't have all of the information timely because we only meet once a month. So yes, we need to do what's best for the majority, but sometimes we have to go against that.
Thank you. And Josh Collins, it's your turn to answer that question. Again, is it ever appropriate to go against the majority of parents' wishes when making a decision on the school board? And if so, could you give an example of when it might be appropriate?
So I'll echo a couple of the comments that have come before me here. Generally speaking, the decision will be made that follows the majority, because the majority is what you're always hoping to benefit, right? You're always hoping to benefit more than get left behind. That's an unfortunate fact of life that you have to triage in some way or another like that. However, there are absolutely cases where you have to make a decision that is against the majority. And I can think of 3 of them right off the bat. If it involves safety, and these all, I guess, kind of come back to the information that's available to us versus perhaps the general public. If it's a gift safety, sometimes you have to make a choice to ensure the safety of the kids that may be very unpopular at the time, but maybe also be very necessary. And folks won't understand that. And many times you're not able to even provide that information because of, again, if you provide the information, you make it unsafe. So that happens. Fiscally, sometimes you have requirements based on the money that you have available where you might feel you have a large amount of money available to do something with it, but you cannot. The rules are against you. Same thing with just general requirements. There are so many laws and codes that are written that will make your head spin when it comes to education. And sometimes, even though it seems a common sense move to make, there are many layers of reasons behind it why you just can't do it. So you have to go against the majority in that case, even if it's unpopular. But then it becomes our job to make sure we inform the best way that we can, and then ultimately be willing to reconsider if the opportunity is there.
Thank you. The next question will go first to Fred Davis. Fred, what is the role of the school board in the hire of teachers, paraprofessionals, and others? As a board member, what would you do if you disagree with the superintendent's recommendation?
Well, number one, I would have to have a solid reason for that feeling. For this reason, my philosophy is on the board that the superintendent answers primarily to the board as well as the treasurer. When the structure goes down from that, let's say it's an elementary teacher and the elementary principal, that's his choice. Well, if that goes to the superintendent and is referred up to me, I would have to have real solid grounds to override both the superintendent's recommendation and the building principal's recommendation, because I think that that's an administrative role for the administrative team. And now if it was something in the background that's basically a gray area of legality or anything that, there again, I go back to I have to protect the kids and their best interests, but very seldom is that ever happened. As a board member, I do not decide what teacher is hired. People call me all the time and want to use me for reference. Don't have a problem in the world, but they answer that building principal, and that building principal answers superintendent. She is responsible for that decision.
Thank you. Jay Barnes, the question next goes to you. Again, it was, what is the role of the school board in the hire of teachers, paraprofessionals, and others? As a board member, what would you do if you disagree with the superintendent's recommendation for a hire?
Well, I'm going to quote the Ohio School Board Association's role of what a board member, what we're responsible for. And again, whether you like this statement or not, this is the way the school boards in Ohio are set up. But the school board, we're responsible for hiring the superintendent and the treasurer. Yes, we have to vote on superintendent recommendations, but it's not the board's role to hire teachers. It's not the board's role to hire or suggest for hire paraprofessionals. And any other category that may come aboard. So it's our job to hire the superintendent and the treasurer. Now, if there is someone that's being recommended to us for hire that I don't personally agree with, I'm not going to make a public stink about it. I'm going to talk to the superintendent, try to get an understanding of where the hire recommendation is coming from. But if you go against the superintendent in this regard, we're going against our own board policy. We are not in the position to deal with day-to-day administrative issues and who they should have on their team or working as staff. That's not the role of the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh Collins, same question to you. What is the role of the school board in the hire of teachers, paraprofessionals, and others? And as a board member, what would you do if you disagreed with the superintendent's recommendation?
So in the purest sense, the role of the board is to approve or disapprove of the recommendations. And by and large, it's approve. What we have to begin with is trust that the hiring policies are followed, that the best candidate is selected, and that all candidates have been considered. If there are concerns that any of those three have not been met, then it should be upon the individual that has that concern to bring it to the superintendent behind closed doors, not in public. But bring it to the superintendent, raise your concern and say, hey, can you help me understand this, please? Because I'm not certain about it. And if everything checks out, may as well never happened. You go in, you approve. If things don't check out, it's once again your responsibility to ask the question of why. What can we do better? And hopefully you never get to the point where you have to actually say no in public. But if you do, that's what you have to be strong enough and brave enough to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Ramsey, that question to you as well, please. What is the role of the school board in the hire of teachers, paraprofessionals, and others? And as a board member, what would you do if you disagree with the superintendent's recommendation?
What I believe that's like most have said, it's really up to the administration to make those decisions. Yeah, I agree. The school board has to be responsible that if they have some information or knowledge about a candidate that is concerning, then they should talk to that administrator or superintendent, again, in private, and see if you can better understand what, or maybe they can understand your concerns and hopefully explain that away. But I think it's dangerous, or I think it's non-productive for board members to second guess or try to micromanage their administrators. I mean, I think, and ultimately, I think the kids do suffer for that, because I think a board should be supportive. I think a board should try to empower their teachers and their administrators, because I think empowered administrators and teachers are more effective.
Thank you. You all are providing such good, comprehensive answers that we're not going to have time to get through all the questions. So I'm going to skip down over a few and get to one that addresses what a couple of you addressed as the single most important issue in the Alexander School District. So with Jay Barnes answering first this time, the question is, do you think it was the right decision or a mistake to not mandate masks at the beginning of the school year? Why or why not?
At the beginning of the year, when the vote was made, I will stand by my vote that it was optional. And it's because of the numbers that we had at the time. Also based upon conversations with the health department and just where we stood at the time. If we had the crystal ball, everybody thought that, for the most part, everybody thought COVID was contained. And there was also information being put out that, honestly, mask wearing day in, day out really affected the child's psychological abilities. So that weighed on my decision as well. Now, fast forward 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the school year, yes, I was still resistant, but as the numbers kept climbing, the quarantine issue started killing us as far as students not being able to be in the building. We found out last year, bar none, the best education these children get is when they are in the building. So to preserve that, and keep the most kids in the building, then I flipped and we went with masks. So at the time, I will still stand by my decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh Collins, same question. Do you think it was the right decision or a mistake to not mandate masks at the beginning of the school year? Why or why not?
So I've already got my record on this one. I was openly in that board meeting. I said I did not believe it was the right decision. I did not see us being able to maintain the number one goal, which was, as I asked in the very beginning of that presentation from Mrs. Douglas, what is our number one goal? It's to keep kids in school as much as possible. Well, when you look at the information that's available, you see that what was available to us from the CDC and the Ohio Department of Health, how they were going to determine quarantines. And that was the obvious answer as the biggest risk to our kids, was that as soon as COVID started coming in, we would have large scale quarantines unless we had universal masking. And I made the motion and it was ultimately turned down to do that from the very beginning. Subsequently, in that same meeting, I voted for the plan that was provided that included not mandating masks. And the reason I did that was simple. There was enough information that we should have had a good enough plan to proceed and minimize how much trouble we'd have. The administration was behind it, the administrative team was behind it, and they felt that they could handle things. We know what reality turned out to be. Reality turned out that our numbers went over 150 quarantines in a single day. Now with universal masking, we're back down to 30 to 40 at most quarantine during the day. So ultimately, it wasn't the right decision, but I stand by what I chose to do. I made my statement. I followed with the group. I supported the group the best that I could. And when it came time to come back and revise it, we did.
Thank you. Aaron Ramsey, same question to you. Do you think it was the right decision or a mistake to not mandate masks at the beginning of the school year? Why or why not?
I have a hard time second guessing people that I wasn't involved with that decision. So I have a hard time second guessing them. But my opinion is that I felt the board did make the right decision at that time. The case numbers were down. At that time, our understanding was that for kids, kids did fairly well with COVID. And there are some real concerns when it comes to educating kids, especially young kids trying to learn to read, vocabulary, those sort of things, that it's difficult when they can't see the teacher's mouth. So there are some reasons why masking kids may not be the best thing to do, or we could just, why wouldn't we do that all the time anyway? Because there's colds and flu and other things. But I also, when the board made the decision to go back to wearing masks full times because of the quarantine issue, that made a lot of sense too, because they were focused on keeping the kids in school. And that is the main thing. It's so important that our kids have that opportunity to be in school. So I was supportive in both of those situations. I was supportive with the initial decision not to mask. And I was also supportive of their decision to go back to masking to try to keep kids in school.
And Fred Davis, same question, please. Do you think it was the right decision to not mandate masks at the beginning of the school year? Why or why not?
Yes, I was, along with Jay, one that voted to not have masks going back based on the data I had seen and where we were at. I thought the best solution was to not go with masking. But anybody out there that's followed the COVID from day one, the message from the federal level down is constantly changing. How many people have made decisions and had to change those within a week, 2 weeks, or whatever. So there again, I base my decisions, what I feel and what people I've talked to, what's best for kids. And I don't think masking is ideal for kids outside of the COVID era. I mean, we're just talking about small kids, the socialization issues, it's just not the healthiest thing. But when it became obvious we were having way too many quarantines, it was time to change. And I'm more than willing to change if I see the data and feel that it's whatever's best for the kids. And that's what I did.
Okay, thank you. And you are all so concise and decisive on that we do have time for one more question before the closing statements. So for this one, Josh Collins will answer first. And the question is, what is the board's role in establishing safety plans to protect the children of Alexander Local School District against threats like bullying, illness, bomb threats, or unauthorized people in the building? But that's not an exhaustive list if you want to add something else.
In developing safety plans, the direct purpose of the board is to not be involved. We are not intended to help write those plans to develop the minute detail. Where the board comes in is when those plans are necessary to meet a requirement or they're necessary to meet a need. The board reviews those plans and offers guidance based on the policy that's been set and based on just common sense in some letters and the different perspectives that we all bring to it. We review those plans and offer guidance, offer suggestions on how to change them or to make them better if at all possible. And then ultimately we endorse them through voting to vote them in and adopt them, and then ensure that they are followed properly. We hold, after that point, once it's adopted, we hold the administration accountable to follow their plan to the T. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Ramsey, what is the board's role in establishing safety plans to protect the children of Alexander Local School District against threats?
I agree. I don't think it's really the board's job to establish the safety protocols. It is important, though. I mean, a kid needs to be able to feel safe to be able to do well in school and to learn it, and that is important. But I think that should be up to the administration to come up with those plans. And again, the board should review that, and if they have something positive to add to that or concerns, then they should voice that and ultimately approve it or ask for revisions.
Thank you. Fred Davis, what is the school board's role in establishing the safety plans to protect the children of Alexander schools against threats?
Basically, the school board would review those plans and okay them. But the white elephant in the room with this safety plans, the state of Ohio required every school district in the state to file a safety plan, and there was a whole metrics that had to be met. The reason I know that as EMA director, I was in charge of making sure every school in the county was compliant with that plan, and it had to be approved by the state of Ohio through the Homeland Security. So this plan covers anything from active shooters to tornadoes. There's a whole metrics of it, and it covers where your triage areas will be set up, where your first responders will come in and develop the command post and the chain of command, and where the school superintendent fits into that chain of command. Law enforcement's going to come in. You have to understand, if in an active shooter situation, that the law enforcement will be the first to go in. Fire does not go in because they are basically the rescuers, and if you lose your rescue team, then there's going to be a lot more carnage. So it's a comprehensive plan we developed with each school district, and it was approved by the state. So it's not a board function. We just approve it.
Thank you. Jay Barnes, same question to you. What is the board's role in establishing safety plans to protect the children of Alexander Local School District against threats?
Well, it sounds like we have a 4-0 majority here, because I will throw at my 2 cents in at the end that I agree it's not the board's role. That's why we have an administrative team. We have a district leadership team that encompasses all of our building levels. But one thing that I've learned over the last 4 years is that even though we have these individual policies that's specific to Alexander, we're not unique. We have to have these plans, but so does every other school district in the state. And the good news is a lot of the administrators talk with one another. So they're constantly sharing ideas of what worked, what didn't work. Hey, what do you have in your plan? Can we borrow that? That sounds like a great idea. But also the state, just like the IRS, which I deal with on a daily basis, there's a lot of things that our hands are tied with. The state sends down a lot of rules that your policy or your manual will have X, Y, and Z. Yes, we have to have that. Can we add more to it? Certainly. But the board's role eventually is to take what the administrative team comes up with, offer suggestions if we'd like some changes, and eventually vote it up or down.
All right, thank you. That concludes the segment of this candidate forum of the public questions, or the questions from the public. Now it's time for the closing statements. Again, you will each have 2 minutes for your closing statements. And Aaron Ramsey, you are first this time.
Well, again, thank you for putting this event on, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to get us speak with Jay and Josh and Fred about this. And hopefully people have a better sense of who I am and how I can best serve the Alexander School District. My main focus is always stay grounded, stay focused on what the main thing is, and that is what is best for the kids, the education of our kids. And so I hope you'll consider voting for me, and I appreciate everyone that took the time to put this together and those that are listening online. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Davis, it's your turn.
Once again, I appreciate the League of Women Voters for what they do to promote people being interested in the school board. I appreciate everybody that showed up or tuned in tonight or will watch. I would ask the voters in this school district, you've elected me 10 times to a 4-year term. I'm not nearly as old as I look, and I'm in fairly good health. So don't worry about my next 4 years. But I got on this school board after the strike back in the 70s. We were a divided district. And from that time on, I have worked to try to meet the needs of not only kids, but parents. And I go back to the coal furnace days of Shade, Waterloo, and Albany. And we would have a custodian come in and have the building warm by the time the kids got there, but it was probably pretty smoky. And I did this because I love this area. This is my home school district. I had those kids in Little League and Betty League basketball and their family to me. And if I can give anything back to my community, this is what I want to do. The school board's not a place to make a name for yourself. Very few people call when they're happy. But I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to be reasonable. And I try to not overreact. I try to, when I lay my head down at night, feel that I've done the best job I could. If that's no longer good enough for this district, I understand. I'll still support this district to the day I'm gone. But for all of you that supported me over the years, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and I would ask for another opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay Barnes, it's your turn.
Well, I'll echo everyone's sentiments. Again, thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us this evening. And I'd just like to touch briefly on, again, how I got started with this 4 years ago and why I decided to run. Granted, I had one daughter that had just graduated from Alexander, and I still had one in the system. 4 years later, I now have 2 proud Alexander graduates that went here K through 12. I've been in the community 27 years now. I know a lot of people. I feel like I'm very approachable. If you go to the livestock sale at the fair or anywhere out in the community, Kroger's, I'm very approachable, and I will stop and talk with people. And a lot of times people don't like the information that I have to give them, but they do know that it's a straightforward, honest answer. It's usually a black and white answer. I can be blunt at times, politely blunt, but I do get my point across. And you're going to find out that, you know, when you hear it from me, I've usually done my homework and given you the best answer that there is out there. So I just ask that, you know, the fact that 4 years ago, we had quite a bit of turmoil going on in the district, and I'm not taking credit for where we are today. All I'm saying is that through some positive leadership, we have gained ground as a district in the last 4 years. We still have some work to do, and I just would appreciate your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you. And for the final closing statement, it's Josh Collins now, please.
So allow me to say for the final time then, thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to the other candidates for being part of this. And thanks to anyone who has seen this or will see it in the future. I'd just like to reiterate, I'm a product of the Alexander school system and a product of the community around it. And that involves the education and involves the environment all throughout the school and all throughout the district. It is most important to me to preserve that community, to preserve that environment for my kids, for those that are currently students, and for students to come in the future. I had the honor of growing up in the environment that I did, and it yielded for me an amazing set of mentors from forgive me for the name drops, but from coaches like Jerry Royce and Ralph Scribner, teachers like Sally Ball and Gary and Sharon Dunphy, folks that were amazing influences and positive influences in my life that became a foundation, part of the foundation that has led me into adulthood and led my family to decide this is our home. This is where we want our children to grow up in. It's the environment that I grew up in yielded me lifelong relationships, whether they work in the school now or they were the 4 guys that stood up next to my wife and me on our wedding day. Those are lifelong relationships that don't happen unless you have the environment that I had growing up. And preserving that environment and making sure it continues is my number one priority. This is not about trying to build a resume or get a participation trophy or build an ego or do any of those accolades. This is about genuinely loving where you come from and wanting to take care of the people that you grew up with and that will grow up in the same environment. I feel I have a unique set of abilities and skills that can help continue to preserve the district and the environment that's there and continue to help lead forward. And I'm asking for the opportunity to continue doing it for another 4 years. I was a newbie 4 years ago. We have 4 newbies over the last few years, and I'd like to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to all 4 of you candidates for participating in this League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. It's great that you've enabled the people of the school district to find out more about your thoughts and your attitudes toward different issues. And I really appreciate your participation. This recording will be viewable on the League of Women Voters of Athens County Facebook page and on the website of the Athens League of Women Voters.org. And finally, I want to thank the people of the Alexander School District for submitting so many thoughtful questions and for tuning in to learn more about these candidates and what each of them has to offer. Whether you're doing this live right now or you're going to be watching this in the future, I think paying attention to these candidate forums is something that really kind of strengthens local democracy. And I thank you for spending some time finding out who is running for your school board. We urge everybody to please make a voting plan now. The deadline to register to vote this fall is October 4th, that's Monday. And early in-person voting begins on October 5th, this coming Tuesday. And election day will be November 2nd. Thanks to each and every one of you, and have a good night.